Good evening, everybody. Shak from Empowered Running here. In the last couple of videos that we did, I displayed two different shelters that could be made using a Ridgeline system and a tarp. And I had some feedback that people couldn't see the knots. So I'm going to go over a little bit of that today. Going to construct what you need for setting up the Ridgeline and tarp system. First of all, I've got a Pathfinder emergency survival blanket / tarp, all purpose. I'm going to go ahead and take this out of the box. We'll get this laid out and ready to go now. As you can see, this one is olive drab. So if you're going to be carrying something for an emergency, olive drab isn't going to help you as far as signaling or attracting anybody. Well, this comes with the reflecting inside. So that side could definitely be used to signal, and it could be used to reflect heat in the desert. It could also be used to reflect your heat back at you in a situation where it's cold. So there is that going for it. So somebody would say, why would you use olive drab if it's going to be an emergency situation? And the answer to that is not everything has to be an emergency situation. I carry different things for different scenarios. If I was backpacking or just spending a day or two out in the woods and maybe I didn't want to be seen, that's something to keep in mind. I've also got some paracord here that we're going to be making a Ridgeline from. I've got a roll of Gorilla Tape that we're going to use to reinforce the corners, and I've got some smaller line that we're going to make some prusik cords out of on the Ridgeline. So first, let's start with the Ridgeline itself. 550 paracord, and guys, 550 just means that's the static line, the static weight that the line is rated for. So you can put 550 pounds on this without it breaking the line. That should be more than adequate for almost anything that you're going to need. You can get 550 paracord almost anywhere. For your Ridgeline, you're going to want 30 feet. Conveniently, High Desert Life Outdoors is selling 30 feet of paracord. If you buy 50 feet, which they commonly sell at Walmart, or you buy 100 feet online or whatever, your Ridgeline is going to need to be about 30 feet. One thing to remember is when you're cutting it to burn the ends, and I might show some of that later, but if you are measuring, I'm roughly 6 foot tall. Well, I'm 6'4", but if you just go on the length of your arms in between, you can measure out. So fingertip to fingertip is approximately how tall you are, right? So if I'm roughly 6 foot, if I stretch out my arms 5 times in length, I'll end up with 30 feet of paracord. 6 times 5 is 30. It'll be give or take. It won't be exact. The first knot that we're going to tie on one end is a bowline. There's lots of videos on the internet, I'm sure, about how to tie a bowline, but I remember learning in Royal Rangers, Boy Scouts, those different things. We tie it in search and rescue all the time, but basically you have a loop, and if you see this, my loop is facing me. It's an overhand loop for me, and I'm going to bring what's called the tag end up and through, and I'm going to bring it so it's come up through this hole here, and I'm going to try not to have my hands in my own way. So this is what we've got so far, right? You got tag end. I see that it blends into my shirt a little bit there. But then this end is going to come around the main line, and it is going to go back into the hole from which it came, and then you're going to pull that in. And so on a finished bowline, guys, the tag end should be following the inside of the loop. And when you pull on it, it should not slip. So one end is going to get a bowline, and all the way at the other end, we are going to just put another little knot that'll just keep the cord from fraying if the burnt end, something happens to that. You can see where the end is burnt. But if you're cutting your own, guys, all it takes to secure that end is just a lighter and a little bit of burny there, and just let it cool off before you go tying knots in it again, because it's going to be hot, melted nylon. So give that a second. I don't want to do a video where I'm just out here burning myself. Just a little knot in the end to back that up. This is a figure 8 that would slip. You could also just do any kind of knot, guys. That's just a granny knot. Well, basically, whatever you put here, if it starts fraying, you want the knot to stop it from fraying. So what we just did, guys, with the bowline on one end and overhand knot on the other end, we're going to do that for all of the pieces that go on the tarp. So I'm not going to record myself doing that several more times. This is going to be the one, so you can go back and rewind the bowline on one end, safety knot on the other. So the next thing I want to do is I want to tie some prusik cords. The first one I might tie a little bigger than I normally would, just so that you guys can see what I'm doing. But I've got my knife here, and I've got some bank line, some tarred bank line, and I'm going to cut that. Guys, always remember knife safety. So don't cut in between your legs. Don't be waving the knife out where it's going to cut somebody that's around you. Always be safe with your knife. So it's easy enough to just hold the knife and pull the cord through it. And then don't leave a sharp knife lying around. So guys, this is a little bigger than what I would normally do, but I'm going to do it so I have room enough to work with to show you what I'm doing. But basically, a prusik is a smaller cord that you're going to tie onto a bigger cord to keep it from slipping. And the first thing I'm going to do is make a fisherman's knot. So I've got one end coming over here, and now I'm just going to make a slip knot over it. Then I'm going to turn the line around so that that's down here, and I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So basically, what I have now is a fisherman's knot. It slips and gets bigger or smaller according to what I need it to do. So again, this one's pretty big, much bigger than I'm going to need for what I'm doing, but I wanted to have enough to work with that you could see what I'm doing. So now I'm going to repeat that a couple of times. You could have 2 to 3 prusiks depending on the number of holes for your tarp. For this one, I'm going to set up 2 prusik lines, and I don't need a whole lot of space for that. So I'm going to go ahead and get these tied up. It's about the size you want. Now I've got my prusiks here, and I've got my bowline here. So near my end with my bowline, I'm going to take my prusiks and try to do this where you can see it, but I'm going to loop this around and through itself 3 times. I want to do it with the knot at an angle so that it doesn't get caught in the knot that I'm doing. So 1, and guys, this is the same knot that they teach in search and rescue for a backup climbing device. 2. I'm not gonna lie, it's easier to do this when your ridgeline is extended. One, 3. And guys, this is the part that you're going to be able to run your stake through to connect to the line that's going to be in your tarp. So I'm trying to dress this up a little bit. What I'm doing is trying to make sure that the cord isn't overlapping itself and that I have 3 distinct loops. Guys, see if I can get this camera to focus in here. This is a dressed prusik. Hopefully the camera can see. I've got the distinct loops that aren't crossing over each other. And it comes through. So what the prusik does, guys, is it allows me to easily slide this when it's connected to my tarp, right? See how easy the line slides through it? But as soon as there's tension on it, guys, it grabs and it won't slip. That's what keeps your tarp from blowing away and getting all loose. So as soon as I put tension on it, it can't slip. But as soon as I decide to move it myself, it moves very easily. So I'm going to put the second prusik cord on here now. Yes, I've got 2 prusik loops tied on there. So I'm just going to slide those up to the end of the bowline. And this is how you take care of your line so that it comes out easily. I'm going to put the prusik and the bowline between my spock fingers, and I'm simply going to wrap between my pinky and my thumb. And then I'm going to slide my thumb out, slide my pinky out, and with the part that's remaining, I'm simply going to start walking this up, wrapping it up. You don't need to be doing any crossing over or anything like that. We'll simply wind it down. And like I showed you guys in the Ridgeline system, this is going to be your biggest piece of paracord, so you'll always know exactly what it is when you grab it, because nothing else is going to be 30 foot long. And then right at the end here, I'm going to push my backup mount through. Now I've got these hanged up, and guys, the reason we do it that way is now when I pull from the bowline end, it never mods up on me. It just continues to come out. So that's the reason that we tie that the way that we do. So again, this ridgeline system, it's taught pretty commonly because it's pretty simple, right? Like we showed. So just wrap this up again. Now we've got that tied up and ready to go. We're going to set that aside. The next thing we're going to talk about, guys, is the tarp itself. Now, as from Self-Reliance compared to getting the version of this that you would get at Walmart, these corners have been reinforced. This tarp is folded over on itself, glued, and as you can see in here on the corner, the extra stitching around here. So that's been reinforced. I'm still going to put some Gorilla Tape around the grommet itself so that I don't have issues with that. But they do sell these orange blankets with reflective material at Walmart, but they will not have the reinforced corners like the ones you get in the Pathfinder school. So just to be sure that the grommet itself stays in, I'm going to take my Gorilla Tape, very multi-purpose, and I'm just going to run this across there, and I'm going to take it to the back side of it. Then you listen. And again, the corners are already reinforced in this. I'm just reinforcing the grommet. You saw some of the terps I had in the last videos. I reinforced the entire corner. I'm going to go ahead and get those taped up. The next thing I'm going to do is get my cords ready on my corner pieces. So for this, I'm going to use 6 foot of paracord, get these ends warmed off. Some people say, well, could you do this to one of those emergency ponchos, one of the military spec emergency ponchos? And the answer is absolutely you can. And then you have a versatile piece of equipment, right, that serves as a shelter and a poncho. The problem with that is when you need to set up a shelter and not be in it and it's raining, right? So then if you're using your shelter and your poncho and you have your shelter set up, but it's raining and you need to get out of the shelter for whatever reason, then you don't have all the pieces of equipment that you need. So I like to carry this separate from a poncho. So not a problem at all if that's what you choose to do. The next thing I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to tie the same line that we did again, but this time I'm using a 6 foot piece of paracord instead of 30 foot. I'll spare you, but I'm going to put a bowline in one end and a safety knot at the other. Now I've taped my corners and I've prepared my cord. So I've got some holes in where I've reinforced the grommets. Hopefully you can see that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my bowline knot. I'm going to run it through that. Back on itself, and you see what I've got here, guys. Enough loop that I can put my tent stake through or whatever that I need to do. With this loop right here. Oh, Not too much loop there, but enough that you can get your tent stake through, whatever you need to do with that. And then all this extra paracord that's on here, what that's for is, as you remember in the last video that I had run into a tree root, and not every place you're going to pitch is going to be exactly perfect for you to put the stake in right at that spot. So this extra cordage gives you, should you need it, the ability to stake out further away. So then we're just going to take this and we're going to loop our corners the exact same way that we did our ridge line. And do one more. Well, each of our corners will have a bowline and we'll have ridgeline on them. And I'm going to do this on all of the corners, but I won't record all of that because that would be pretty boring for you. I've taken my extra paracord, made loops, I've put my stakes together. I'm going to try to move this camera so that you can see what I'm doing here. I folded my tarp up. I've got all the corners on the inside, and I'm just going to take my tent stakes on my paracord, my ridge line, and I'm just going to roll this all up. Cross here, everything inside. You guys, I've got one more piece of paracord. It's exactly the same as all the rest of them. And it has, see if I can see what I'm doing. Bowline on one end, right here. Reinforced knot on the other end. And trying to show you guys the best I can without anybody helping me film how I'm going to do this. If I take it, so this is the same cord, I've bent it in half, and I'm rolling this and making two loops that I'm going to put together. So then I'm going to take one end of my cord. This one happens to be the end with the bowline. I'm going to bring the end through. I'm going to take the other end. This is the reinforced knot end. And I'm going to bring it through both loops the opposite direction. And doing this, I can just pull back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until it's tight. It's going to hold it. It's not going to slip, but I can slip this off of either end very easily, and then it's able to untie once I've got it slipped off. Very easy to do, guys. So this is your ridgeline system. Everything consists of a bowline knot on one end. Remember, you know your bowline is correct when the tag end follows the loop. It's got a reinforced knot on the other end. I've got 30 foot of that for the ridge line itself. And then I have 4 of those, one on each corner, that are 6 foot long. And then I took all the extra paracord that came in the roll, made the same thing. And then I saved one out to tie this with, making a loop, pushing the bowline end one way and the reinforced knot the other way. And you can just pull back and forth and you end up with a tidy container. So that is how I set up the tarp. Love to hear how you guys do yours, or if you carry something different than a Ridgeline and Tarp system, and you can share your experience. Until next time, guys, run empowered.